James Blunt, it's James All About Business. Thank you for watching today. I do appreciate it. This video is on team excellence. And this has been a big request from many viewers and people who write to me and ask me several questions. So I get 4 bucketed areas. So the 4 bucketed questions I often get are knowledge management, chief of staff, organizational development, and the 4th bucket I would term team excellence. And maybe they don't use the word team excellence, but really it is the capture of this specific area. I'll tell you about this methodology and how it can be helpful to create a culture in your organization to posture your team for increased effectiveness and high performance. Stay tuned. So be sure to subscribe to my channel to see the latest topics on business and organizations, and also please give a like to this video. So in my intro, I've talked about team excellence, the methodology and culture and spirit. And so this methodology is something that is intended to become a culture. It's something that should be second nature. And it's something that I'm surprised the word didn't exist before my, I would say, coining this term. And I think it's important to think about this because I do believe there's a great need for increasing effectiveness. And this methodology is something that offers a capability for people to understand, learn, and implement this particular area. I think it's completely important to think about this and essential to know this. Some teams are still waiting to be empowered and are not focused in on, say, a framework of tracking progress, increasing velocity of action, being unified on decisions. Now, this is one area where organizations can fall behind because guess what? If your organization's teams are not being effective in making quicker decisions or making, responsible decisions or responsive decisions or quality decisions, this definitely plays out maybe in the products and services you create. Meetings are important to create a sound platform of seamless meeting structure. And this is important because there's so many meeting types that people have. And this is probably one of the biggest complaints people have about meetings. I've seen one particular statistic saying that 90% of people at a meeting are thinking about another meeting or thinking about work or thinking about home. They've, in essence, disengaged. And so team excellence is really an opportunity for a team to work together and also have people participate. I've been in many meetings where I was just an artifact. I was just to be there, but not to participate. I didn't even have an opportunity to even say one word. And this is one meeting I attended for about a year. If I could have opted out of that meeting, I would have. So Robert Greenleaf is somebody that I learned about in college. I did have a video actually on servant leadership I'll place right up here. I think it's essential to think about because when he talks about organizations, he talks about them in terms of being for-profit, non-profit, governmental, and even say I would call spiritual or religious organizations. So they organize people and teams together. I would say any organization would say that they want their teams to be effective. They want to make sure that their teams are actually being responsive and actually being innovative and taking considerable velocity in quality actions. That's what organizations strive for. They want not just team excellence, but product and service excellence. So the need to align teams to move forward in the right time frame with the right action in the right way is imperative today. I think that's really the call out of my first statement here. Team excellence is to get to operate to a high performance level and create best in class teams. Now, that's something that will not be a monopoly, say, of any or all organizations. Only, I think, a small amount of organizations, those that really have a mindset, say a leadership team or a leader who believes in creating excellence in their teams, will approach this and implement a team excellence model. Team excellence creates an environment which will help link people together, creating a culture of transparency, accountability, and that brings together and cements commitment. And the intent and features of team excellence is that it's a scalable model. It can go, and I do recommend it starts from the top, from the leadership down, because that is really representative of a sponsorship. When the senior leader sponsors a team excellence model for her or his leadership team, then they're able to demonstrate the value of this, and then it can be cascaded downward. And I think this holistic method is really important. An additional feature is intent to have a method to operate efficiently, process, and not personality driven. I mentioned this before. I think this is a very strong point I'd like to make here because so many organizations have personality driven meetings. And ultimately, if it's personality driven, it could be just for that individual. When you have a process, it doesn't mean the leader does not have any say in the team meeting itself or the team structure. It means that they have the buy-in of the organization's leadership team or another leadership team, or say a project or a program team come together, and there's an agreement of how people work together, so that it's not done in a silo. It's not just for one person, but it's really intended for all. Team excellence is how teams work together. So there can be a variety of methods, documents, agreements, charters. Say the nonprofit world uses a MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, handbooks, etc. So in a senior executive meeting, they're going to talk about decisions or, headcount, budget obligations, and so forth. So also it's a point in time to remind the team to think about recognition. And this is one thing I think is really essential, because often I hear from individual contributors how they're not being recognized in an organization for all the outstanding work they're doing. And so this is a great way to remind the executive leadership team and other leadership teams and other teams to think about recognizing fellow team members for the outstanding work they are doing, or individual contributors distributed throughout an organization. The other part, intent, and feature is that communication is cascaded throughout the organization once it's done in one place. And I think this is really important to do, and to do so in a timely way. I've been in organizations where maybe communication has been cascaded down, but one team is really efficient and the other one is not. And I was in one organization in a large company. I would hear about new processes or regulations or requirements or other features that were coming from another organization that would definitely impact the organization that I was in. We would not hear from our leadership team for about a couple of weeks later. So leadership team to leadership team, it happens to be, and that's of course a complex organization. You don't have to wait for a staff meeting to talk about things. If it's relatively urgent or there are updates, this could definitely be communicated, maybe in a communication log in the team excellence model. Or it can just be an email that's sent out in a communication, so that people are up to date and they're not having to hear from another organization within your larger organization. This is an enabling methodology for chief of staff in particular. I think it's vital and important, and one that chief of staffs should be utilizing. I've noticed several things going on in the COS world, which is there is a lot of people who don't stay for a tenure of 2 years, which is pretty typical, but they stay for a lot less of time, because the expectations and the ability to make, say, improvements are not really within, not necessarily their capability of doing so. It happens to be the structure is not set up so the COS can operate more efficiently and effectively. This can go to facilitators, say continuous improvement facilitators. There are tenets, and I like to use the word tenet, say, versus value, simply because organizations have values. An organization may have their values and guiding principles, and I like that to not be confused with the tenets of, say, the tenets of ingrained teams of excellence. So it's a great way for an organization to think about what they do and what they're seeking to accomplish, even on a high level, right? So maybe increased communication, shared commitment and goals, urgency and action, clarity and vision, knowledge, constancy, consistency, and responsiveness. These are things people yearn and crave for. And it's also a reminder to that specific team, one of our tenets is to be consistent with our decisions. One of our complaints that we've received is we're not responsive enough to particular queries that we get from our community. So the teams of excellence are using knowledge to make decisions. And that decision is, what are the first, secondary, and even tertiary effects of a decision? What are unintended consequences? So there's, I think, a value to thinking about this, and to also think deeply about the team that you're involved with. And if perhaps your leader doesn't use it, this might be a good way to bring this out. So where to begin with this? Start off with, a proposal with your leadership team to really think about how this can be helpful. There are plenty of examples you can use to model why this is needed and necessary. Maybe you're trying to solve problems, create efficiency, increase communication. There are things you want to do with this team excellence model for your organization. Talk about specifically what you think perhaps it could save in dollars, perhaps how this can help your organization make more decisions, take more actions, and to be more accountable. There's different ways of framing this, but there's plenty of data in your organization that you can pull and offer a model that can meet those particular challenges and needs and even goals of your organization. gain leadership team endorsement. So when you bring that particular proposal through, ask for their endorsement to utilize this. And it's giving them a clear knowledge of what will be needed from them, and also what it will look like, the current state versus the future state. So access, if you're doing this, and in order to write a plan, you need to assess current and past activities, and getting, say, a voice of customer, voice of business. This is internal, right? So you're trying to understand what maybe an individual contributor might have, or if it's a layer down from the executive committee, what do other teams in your stakeholder community think about how your team is operating. And so there's, using the formal words of voice of customer, voice of business helps to really neutralize that experience, and also to get that information you need to move forward. So there's also organizational fitness. What are strengths, weaknesses, executional capacity, change management capabilities, organizational difficulties, for example. Number 5, develop that team excellence plan. Write it down, because you're going to be executing this. And then introduce this to the leadership team, talking about, their expectations and participation, which leads right to number 7. Number 7 is that you create a charter, and that's done with the leadership team. A handbook is developed. And so as a chief of staff, you can have that person, an individual, be the facilitator and codifying what that looks like. So the Team Excellence Handbook is a way for people to onboard the organization, even offboard it. People are aware of what it is, and fundamental ways of connecting with that organization, and to be part of that team and being part of that team of excellence. Mid-year audit and review. I think it's important for, as a chief of staff or even a continuous improvement person, to go in there and to understand, are you actually meeting your charter? Are you following the handbook? What difficulties do you have, and what things have you done well in? Because that could model for other organizations and other teams as well. It's also to give good feedback to the team that they're doing well in a specific area. Review the past year, what adjustments need to be made, what teachings or even coachings that need to happen to help the Team Excellence model work better. And number 10, ready for the new year. So maybe that's a codification of the handbook, or maybe a revision of the charter, or perhaps just looking at other documentation and getting that ready for the new fiscal year. Now, Team Excellence is about linkages and extensions. This goes from, leadership team to leadership team. So an executive team to layered leadership teams is a way of linking them together. How are they linked together is by setting up communication or sending down communication, send laterally. Also, looking at your project and program teams, or even initiative teams, is a team could link together to the sponsoring organization. So the communication is also flowing upward or laterally, or whatever direction it might be, but that communication is ongoing, and it's something that's a linkage between that, so that they are aware of that team activities, and also can maybe bring things up, send them up or send them down, so that that communication is happening thoughtfully. And I think this is just a culture, a way of being, and one where it creates efficiency in the organization, so there are fewer meetings. Here's an overview of Team Excellence functions. Now, it's team management. I think this is why this has the biggest area. It's really, how does that team function on a week over week or even bi-weekly basis? A lot of teams meet weekly. Sometimes an executive team might meet bi-weekly, and so this is one way of thinking about how you manage that. So agendas, keeping the past ones, keeping the current ones up to date and relevant. Also future agendas. What does that look like with future and proposed topics? Attendance. Who's attending? What are the requirements? Say in a Team Excellence model, you might say that you need a delegate to represent you if you're at the senior executive level, so that your team is always informed of actions of the senior executive leadership team. And then also presentations and proposals. These are really essential in that. Now, these other things I think are really beneficial, and I would say action management is one that has to be done. It needs to be visible and accountable, and so that's one thing I think needs to be done by a Team Excellence model, and however you want to warehouse that and document this. Communication is essential, so it's going to link to another organization, another leadership team, another Team Excellence model, and this is one way of keeping everyone informed and aware of progress, movement, decisions, and so forth. Recognition. I think this is one I can't say enough for. In general, leadership teams or executive teams don't always recognize all those individuals who should be recognized on a consistent basis. So that's one of the chief complaints that I get from people in an organization. It's a reminder to the team in that particular team excellence meeting to remember to do that. Opportunities, what are things that team can work on that while they don't have bandwidth now, but could be something they look forward to in the future. It's not quite a goal, it's not quite a strategy, but it's something that an organization can look at in terms of opportunities. Decision management. I can tell you that organizations are not having one place for their decisions, and the why of their decisions and the logic of their decisions needs to be codified. It needs to be visible, transparent. Also, team calendar, organizational racetrack. What is around the corner for your organization, for your team? Workshops and learning. Keep track of what you're doing as an organization. You're probably doing a lot of things and you're not really keeping track of all the things that you are doing. Goals, you can codify your goals here. A great place to do that for goals and scorecarding. Budget, I think, is essential. There's no organization or even team that doesn't have a budget that they must work towards and keep. So it's a really good thing to have. Foundational areas. So I'm only going to give a few of these. These are action management. So this is something that's accountable and viewable and transparent to your team. So, I would list here maybe these particular action areas. This means that somebody must take action. Here's what they must do. Here's the creation date, the due date, the completion date. I color code this so that I know exactly where things are. So it is a heat map to me. I know, as say a chief of staff, what I need to do. How might I address maybe a particular overdue? Maybe I go to that leader or bring it up at the next team meeting, which is something that can be routine and expected that you're going to be asked about that. And it's not to really put anyone on the spot. It's just to see what help that particular team member may need to bring that overdue to an on track. So foundational area meeting management, this is an opportunity for an organization to be much more disciplined. So when I talk about personality versus process driven, this is process driven. So you're going to see here rolling agenda, items, proposal, and presentation. This is where you bring the business to the team so they can vote on it, endorse it. But you're going to see here recognition, send up, send down, send lateral, around the table, an opportunity for everyone to speak, action management review. So there's a lot of opportunities for people to talk about this. Also standing reportings, scorecard, budget, process update, and so forth. So all these are codified in a meeting. You have facilitators, so people who take the actions down, which would actually be in the action management registry that we just saw right here. And then meeting auditors. How did it go? Did we follow what we say we're going to do? So how do you start this? The foundational, the executive sponsor, agreement, charter, handbook, Team Excellence Center, which is a documentation area, as well as onboarding and offboarding. What does that look like? So you can look at this general overview of implementation to get those ideas. So how do you keep improving what you're doing? No one could ever be perfect enough or good enough, or an organization or team that it doesn't need a bit of continuous improvement. How can this be improved over time? Through auditing, looking at timekeeping. Perhaps it's ensuring everyone has a part to play in a team excellence model. Annual review, so looking at scorecards and goals, renewing and updating the handbook, adding new features to your Team Excellence Center, your documentation center. Sharing and linkages, so how does this say team link to a project or program team or level leadership team or perhaps a work stream team? How does that work together? What is, it could be part of the annual audit. How do you link things together and how effective are they, or how timely are they? So this is one thing to think about. So in a nutshell, this is team excellence. I think it's a fantastic model to look at. It's something I think more organizations need more of versus less. It is a methodology, in my opinion, that becomes a culture. It becomes something that you don't think about. It's something that you do. It's something that becomes so ingrained in your team that it is a tenet of your organization. And it can be modeled for other and future rollouts of other team excellence in your organization. Thank you so much. If you have questions or comments, please list them down below. Thank you so much for watching today. I do appreciate it. More topics to come.